everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is my Forbes colleague, staff writer Zach Everson. Zach, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me back to talk about a familiar subject.
A familiar subject indeed, President Trump and his relationship with cryptocurrency. And I want to read your headline to start. Binance, whose founder was pardoned by Trump, that was in October of 2025, now holds 87% of Trump's stablecoin. And you and I before have talked about the relationship between Binance and World Liberty Financial, which is the crypto venture associated with the Trump family. But to start off the conversation, talk to us about the background of these two companies. How did they get involved with one another?
So Binance has been a longtime crypto exchange. It's one of the biggest out there. It is actually banned in the United States. It is part of a settlement it had with the SEC back in 2023. It agreed to not work here or not have U.S. account holders. It does have a Binance.us affiliate, might be the right word, that is legally allowed here. And then you got World Liberty Financial. That was one that Trump introduced right before the 2024 election. Originally, they were talking about it being like a decentralized finance vehicle. They've come out with two basic products so far. One of them is the World Liberty Financial Token, WLFI, and that is a token that by buying it, it doesn't come with any sort of backing, any ownership in anything. It just allows you to vote on issues involving that token. Then the second product they came out with is USD1, and that is the stablecoin. And that is supposed to be backed one-to-one with U.S. Treasuries and cash. So that is what we're talking about in this case, with the 87% of it is being held at Binance.
So, as you said, Binance holds the vast majority of World Liberty Financial stablecoin USD1, 87%. Why does that matter?
It really stands out. One of the things that crypto enthusiasts will say is it's decentralized. That's one of the great things about it. Nobody has any control. Well, here you've got a stable coin associated with the president of the United States, and 87% of it is being held at one institution. Now, to be clear, this isn't Binance owning 87%. They have at least 2 billion of the 4.7 billion that's there is actually theirs. The rest of it, we don't really know whose it is. And as I dug into the numbers, it really stood out amongst the other top stablecoins. So I went through all of the top 10 stable coins by market cap, looked at which exchanges held the highest percentage of them, and this was the highest. There were two that were above 50%, but those were both, kind of like stable coins that were on their home exchange. So that wasn't too surprising. After that, it's down to like 35%. So this really, really stands out as, a pretty significant amount of the stable coin, this decentralized product, ending up at one exchange.
Do we know anything about who owns the billions of dollars worth of USD1 in Binance accounts? Is it owned by Binance itself, or are there other big customers?
We know Binance owns $2 billion of that. We know it because World Liberty Financial announced that MGX, which is a Abu Dhabi-based investment fund, used $2 billion of USD1 to invest in Binance. So we know that Binance received that $2 billion. The rest of it, we don't know. I mean, Binance could have more of it. It could be all other account holders. Not quite sure.
As you said earlier in this conversation, Binance can't serve U.S. customers. So does that mean 87% of USD1 is held outside of the U.S.?
That should be the case if the rules are being followed. I mean, there's certainly ways around it. I'm not saying anybody's doing that, but it's not all that difficult. If somebody in the United States did want to have an account at Binance for whatever reason, what really stood out to me about this was I think it was just like a little bit over $1,000 of USD1 was held at the U.S. affiliate, which is just a ridiculously small number when you compare it to what's going on at the main one. And one thing to kind of go back on this, I think I should explain why this matters to Trump's bottom line. So stablecoins make money by, similarly to a bank, where they will receive U.S. currency or foreign currency, but a regular currency. They will receive that. They will invest it in treasuries, their short-term instruments. They will receive the interest from that. So right now what you have is Binance is sitting on $2 billion of USD1. That's $2 billion that's generating interest right now at about a rate of 3.6% or so, most likely. That's going to Trump's bottom line. He owns he's affiliated with an LLC that owns 38% of the company. So there's a lot to kind of unpack there. But the more of this money that just sits there, it means the more reserves that the Trumps have to make interest off of.
I know in the title of your piece, you do note that Binance's founder was pardoned by Trump. That was October 2025. President Trump pardoned CZ. I mean, when you note that in the title, how does that play a factor in here? Are there ethics concerns that the founder of this company, President Trump, pardoned him a couple of months ago? Now this company holds so much of the stablecoin that ultimately is helping the president and his family's bottom line.
Well, if you listen to the White House and to CZ's attorneys, there's no issue. The White House has said President Trump doesn't have any conflicts of interest. He'll never have any conflicts of interest. CZ's attorney said that the pardon was just to right a wrong, an injustice. So they're saying no. I think the rest of the world is, yeah, there's certainly some concerns here. If you look on some crypto forums, you'll find actually crypto enthusiasts aren't thrilled about this because it gives the currency a bad name, or an even worse name. For example, we have shortly after Binance listed USD1 last year, the SEC dropped a civil case against Binance. Was that because the new SEC thought it was not worth pursuing, or is it because they just started listing, the world's most popular crypto exchange just started listing a product the president makes money off of? That's concerning.
And the ethics concerns don't stop there. This is something that Congressman Ro Khanna is thinking about. He's the ranking member of the House Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. He's launching an investigation, he said earlier this month, that involves World Liberty Financial. Talk to us about that.
So this gets back to that deal we talked about earlier with MGX. MGX that used the $2 billion worth of USD1 to invest in Binance is, run in part by a sheikh in the UAE who is also the country's national security advisor. And they have wanted these chips over there, and we haven't let them acquire the chips. And after Trump kind of got into business with these folks, all of a sudden U.S. policy changed, and those chips are available to go to UAE. What Congressman Khan and others are worried about is those chips will then flow from UAE to China because other businesses associated with the WHO have in the past had connections with China and done business with them. Now, he said those businesses no longer do have any ties with China, but that is what the concern is.
And just thinking from a business perspective of World Liberty Financial, is it risky for them that the vast majority of their stable coin is being held by one exchange?
Yeah, it certainly could be. I spoke with Molly White, who is a crypto researcher, about this, and she just said, it is possible for them to exert a fair amount of leverage over World Liberty Financial because it has this much. If something were to happen to Binance, and there's no sign that anything will, but if it were to have an issue like we've seen other crypto exchanges, all of a sudden a significant amount of USD1 could just be locked up and unable to be accessed. So, it did seem a little bit interesting there.
Like I said earlier, you and I have had plenty of conversations before about the Trump family and cryptocurrency. And when you're looking at this headline, Binance, whose founder was pardoned by Trump, now holds 87% of Trump's stablecoin. When you're looking at this particular piece, how does that fit in to the larger conversation, the larger puzzle, if you will?
This is the biggest piece. I think if you're looking at how Trump is profiting off the presidency this term, it is crypto, it is this $2 billion deal that has the money that has the $2 billion worth of USD in Binance that Trump's just able to earn interest off of. It is the rest of the crypto stuff because unlike, it's big money. Unlike hotel stays, ballrooms, first term I was interested in, is somebody booking rooms or ballrooms and not using them? I mean, those are things that are anywhere from hundreds to maybe a couple $100,000. This, we're talking billions. So this is huge. And there's no tangible product in exchange for it. It's not like if I go to trumpstore.com and I want to throw some money Trump's way by buying, a $500 piece of crystal that looks like Mar-a-Lago. All right, I get a product in return for this. But in this case, I could just give the money to you. I could just buy USD1 and let Trump make interest off my own money. Or you could invest in World Liberty Financial, those tokens where the Trump Connected LLC gets a cut of all the sales from them. Well,
Zach, certainly a lot to wrap our heads around. I Thank you, as always, for our conversations. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.